Howdy, Geordie Prepper here. Welcome to another Prepper Network news video. Today is the 11th of March, 2024. Firstly, we're looking at Taiwan is going to be deploying a prototype 50 kilowatt vehicle mounted laser weapon system. It's set to introduce this prototype by the end of this year. The project, which was initiated in 2023 with a low-powered prototype, aims to put the system on CM-32 clouded Leopard armored vehicles once it's developed. A 50 kilowatt laser possesses sufficient power output for many combat scenarios, with potential applications against aerial threats such as drones and missile systems. The project explores coupling directed energy weapons with existing air defense systems, presenting strategic possibilities for countering threats posed by adversaries, particularly the Chinese People's Liberation Army. So with the development of this system, it's not just showing Taiwan's commitment to enhancing aerial defensive capabilities. Other countries will be looking into this as well, amidst their own growing regional tensions. The reason for developing these systems is obvious. There's faster and more mobile aerial attack systems being deployed, so you're going to have to create a defensive system which keeps up with this emerging threats. Drones and missiles threaten to unleash more capability in the future. Also, that in order to counter these threats, collaboration between partners, international, is obviously playing an important role. I believe what we'll see in the future is more air defense systems that use no ammunition. They're going to be a lot more laser-based systems. This will obviously put pressure to create platforms which can maintain their duration through any sort of aerial bombardment or attack. So it's okay having a nice fancy laser, but you've got to be able to power it. And I think what we'll probably see also is the emergence of shared networks of systems across allies to make the air defense laser systems more effective. So more integration, and I think also what we're going to see is more networking with systems like Starlink. Maybe not Starlink itself, but some sort of military version is essentially going to be created to network and integrate all of these defensive systems together. Sticking with Taiwan, Taiwan's made a very bold claim. They're claiming that they have absolute air superiority over China across its territory. So Deputy Defense Minister Po Hong-hui, he declared Taiwan's absolute air superiority in response to concerns over Beijing's military actions. The assertion is unusual. I think it's not just unusual, it's extremely bold claim, but it underscores Taiwan's confidence in its defense capabilities. Po emphasized that Taiwan's military possesses the ability to expose enemy aircraft to its air defense system and engage them within firepower range, countering any potential threat from People's Liberation Army warplanes. I think what he's alluding to here is exposing stealthed planes particularly. In response to questions regarding the numerical advantage of the PLA's fighter aircraft, Po stressed the importance of maintaining high-quality military aircraft and training pilots in various tactics to effectively counter Chinese invasion scenarios. While Taiwan asserts area's superiority, some leaked Pentagon documents have casted doubt on the accuracy of the Taiwan's air defense systems and readiness. Concerns over detecting missile launches and the effectiveness of aircraft engaged were highlighted, raising questions about Taiwan's defensive capabilities. I think there's going to be a lot of scrutiny over this, and China itself, they're going to know what the capabilities are. And I'm sure we'll see it tested in the future. Unless they have something so good and not publicly disclosed, it's probably some sort of system, if this is the case, which China is going to be aware of. We'll see just how far this goal takes them when the time comes. Onto the Middle East now, and the US Army is sending a ship to help build this pier. It follows the US President's announcement of plans to increase aid deliveries by sea. Gaza's dire humanitarian situation, with hundreds of thousands of Palestinians now facing hunger, has prompted international action. The United States, along with Jordan and others, has resorted to sea deliveries and airdrops, bypassing Israeli control over land shipments. Israel's expressed support for the sea deliveries and committed to inspecting Gaza-bound cargo before departure from a staging area nearby Cyprus. So they're obviously concerned about possible arms being shipped. The number of aid trucks entering Gaza by land has significantly decreased due to Israeli restrictions and security concerns. US Army's initiative to bypass Israeli control of land aims to help the international community to provide essential assistance to the suffering in Gaza. But the development marks a significant uptick in the urgency to get aid and the formation and collaboration between different countries and agencies. So sticking with the Middle East, and Rafah offensive looks like it's definitely on the horizon now. Netanyahu's asserted that Israel intends to invade Rafah despite Biden's warning against doing so. Biden emphasized the importance of avoiding civilian casualties and described an invasion of Rafah as crossing a red line. And Netanyahu rejected calls for a ceasefire unless there's a significant hostage release deal. And we've already talked about in the past that Hamas is not going to release this hostages until there's a peace deal. Israel is saying that there can't be a peace deal unless the hostages are released. So it's kind of a catch-22. Netanyahu mentioned the high number of casualties among Palestinians, attributing many of them to terrorists. He also highlighted the destruction caused by the conflict. So on one hand, he seems to recognize, all the suffering, and then on the other hand, he just seems to completely openly deny it, or that it's not a reason to delay military action. And Netanyahu suggested that the conflict may be nearing its end, citing progress in recent weeks of weakening Hamas's capabilities. And he also reiterated his rejection of a Palestinian state and suggested that Palestinians' refusal to accept Israel as a Jewish state is a barrier to peace. Potential invasion of Rafah and its implications for civilian casualties are obviously out there. The regional stability remains a significant concern. I think what we're going to see in response to these statements by Netanyahu is Hezbollah, Houthi, and other militants step up their pressure on Israel. There seems to be escalating cyber attacks by Iran against the United States and its allies, particularly Israel. There's calls now for a robust response from the White House. Iran has significantly increased its cyber attacks against the US since October 7th, with a focus on Israel. The attacks have included posing as Hamas on social media, sending threatening messages, and attempting to compromise critical infrastructure. The Iranian hackers have become more sophisticated, according to the article, collaborating with proxies like Hezbollah and Hamas. They're specializing in various aspects of cyber operations, making it challenging to counter their activities effectively. The White House has been condemned for a weak response to this kind of attacks, and they're saying that it's been inadequate, limited mainly to financial sanctions, and there's a lack of a robust deterrent. This is simply emboldening whoever's doing these attacks to keep doing it and to increase their aggressiveness as time goes on. And they're wanting the US to adopt a more proactive approach, including offensive cyber operations, to show and demonstrate a willing to defend against future attacks. Israel's response to these cyber aggression has been crashing Iran's port systems after an attempted attack on its water system, and they're citing this as a model for effective retaliation. The pressure and need for a strong and decisive response from the United States will be getting louder and louder as these attacks continue. If no decisive or retaliatory action is implemented, this threatens to make the US appear weak. And given that they're already being accused of this over the attack on its military base and the response that they gave to that, they'll need to counter any aggression in cyberspace and initiate some proactive measures in response. But like Israel, the US is spread thin and distracted by upcoming elections, so they're going to have to walk the tightrope of a decisive response, whilst ensuring it's not an unpopular response, and also one that doesn't escalate matters too far. So there's quite a lot going on in Haiti at the minute. Big escalation in violence. It's prompting the reinforcement and evacuation of personnel from US Embassy in Port-au-Prince. And it's showing just how fast and how far the decline in the situation there is at the moment. The US military has airlifted Marines to reinforce the embassy due to ongoing gang violence and instability in the country. Now, I saw on a channel on YouTube that one of the guests there made the point that it's not gangs. These are ex-military personnel that are extremely well armed. A lot of the mainstream media is just citing gangs, something which isn't very organized. This guest that was on that interview was basically saying, look, it's not gangs, it's ex-military personnel, very well trained and very well armed, that are trying to get this unelected president out of his position. Ariel Henry is not an elected prime minister, and this trouble dates back to the 2004 coup d'etat, which occurred there. Escalating violence is now posing a significant threat to diplomatic missions and civilian safety. US and international support will obviously be coming to Haiti, but with so much conflict and violence across the world right now, a country is going to be able to keep up with the increased demand. At what point do we see that there's so much going on that areas simply are not able to get any assistance? I think we will if things continue as they are, see an increase in suffering with no support available. As preppers, we must bring this and scale this down to our own personal situation and environment. What happens when the help that you rely on, be it friends, relatives, or emergency services, are simply not able to help you? How can your prepping help you with this? Just something to consider, guys. You know, what happens when your support mechanism might not be available? What do you do? Have you got a backup? So that wraps up our analysis of some current events happening right now and how it relates to preparedness and yourself. Stay tuned for more updates in upcoming videos. Until next time, be safe, be prepared, and check your preps.